be sure to check out my second channel called Rob Explains. There you can check out videos where I explain things outside of comic books. So while I was planning to do another Omega Level Mutants video today, I was going through my list and realized I had forgotten one of the mutants of Marvel Comics who's considered to be beyond Omega Level. And so what I want to do here is have a discussion about Mr. M, which will actually wrap up our explanation on characters who are beyond Omega Level mutants. So for those of you who are new to my YouTube channel, the concept of a mutant being Omega Level was introduced as part of Grant Morrison's run on New X-Men in the early 2000s. Up to this point, mutants were simply considered to be powerful, with the stories themselves providing us with an explanation of who was considered to be the most powerful. However, because different characters were written differently by various writers, the powers they possessed changed based on the circumstances, meaning that there was no universal standard. And so the introduction of Omega Level classifications in Marvel allowed us as the reader to gain a better understanding of who the most powerful mutants were, as well as how they were viewed by other heroes and organizations within the realm of Marvel Comics. That said, the character of Mr. M, or Absalom Mercator, first appeared in the short-lived series District X. Written by David Hind, District X was both the name of a location within the Marvel Universe, as well as a series spearheaded by Editor-in-Chief Joe Quesada. Serving as part of Quesada's Revolution line of comics, which functioned to reboot the X-Men series for the modern reader, District X existed as one half of the equation, with the other half being NYX, which will be covered in my explanation video on X-23. As part of Grant Morrison's overall reworking of the X-Men series, writer David Hind established that because of the various issues involving racism and bigotry towards mutants on behalf of humans, a handful of mutants came together to form their own community within New York's Alphabet City, so named due to the fact that each street is named after a single letter of the alphabet. Covered within the entirety of the series' first 6 issues, what we're told is that because New York itself falls under the jurisdiction of the NYPD, District X is no exception. However, because of the community's wide array of powers owing to its overpopulation of mutants, as well as prostitution, violence, and poverty, the police were effectively outmatched in their entirety, being completely unable to apprehend mutant criminals by conventional means. While this would spin out into the introduction of the futuristic mutant Bishop as a member of the community's self-policing tactics in order to both ensure safety and assuage the community's distrust of humans. Regarding Absalom Mercator, he was referred to as Mr. M by both the children and the community's inhabitants out of both respect and fear, despite largely keeping to himself. Covered in issue number 4, which focused on Mr. M's backstory, what we're told is that as a child, he had come upon his cousin being bullied. Attempting to get the bully to stop, Absalom reached out and touched him, resulting in the bully being turned inside out. Now, where Absalom tells us that the bully lived like this for 3 days, the implication here is that someone or something reversed the process, or else the bully died. But regardless, Absalom was hidden by his parents and smuggled into the United States, where he had lived with relatives for a majority of his life. Now, something to point out here is that by his own admission, Absalom had watched from the shadows as the various superheroes of the world formed into teams or operated solo, carrying out their various roles within the Marvel Universe. What this meant was that during the events of the Onslaught Saga, Operation Zero Tolerance, House of M, Civil War, and the death of Captain America, Absalom had been in existence but chose not to act due to his experiences as a child. To this end, Absalom simply took to making his way in the world, taking odd jobs here and there, eventually settling in Mutant Town after its formation. Now, with regards to his powers, Absalom Mercator is capable of altering the molecular structure of anything he touches, granting him the power to warp reality. Now, something I want to point out here is that Absalom is not on the same level as Franklin Richards or Matthew Malloy, and while there is no hierarchy of power once you get above Omega Level, if there were different stages, Absalom would be well below Franklin and Matthew. The reason for this is that unlike both Franklin and Matthew, Absalom has to physically touch something in order to manipulate its molecules. At the same time, David Hind delves into a bit of contradiction here. What I mean is that while explaining his powers, Absalom states that he could initiate a nuclear explosion using his powers, wiping out the entirety of New York and the surrounding area. Where this requires us to be a little speculative, with atomic explosions occurring by splitting the atom, because the oxygen that Absalom breathes contains atoms, it would seem that Absalom is capable of detonating those atoms. But again, this is a stretch at best, and at worst, it's absolute nonsense. But regardless of how that would work, the fact remains that because of his ability to manipulate matter through contact, Absalom can instantly heal from any injury so long as brain function remains, control the function and workings of all machines, activate or negate the mutant powers of others, manipulate and control energy on a subatomic level, transform anything into anything else by altering its molecular structure, as well as grant himself telepathy, telekinesis, and increase his own durability to indestructible levels. However, because the District X line of stories was short-lived in the face of Marvel's House of M, which reduced the overall population of mutants, much like Franklin Richards and most likely due to his ability to manipulate matter, Mr. M retained his powers despite the Scarlet Witch's actions. Now again, because there were a handful of mutants who retained their powers, some of whom were as powerful as Scarlet Witch while others were weaker, there's no method for us to measure the powers of Mr. M in relation to Scarlet Witch. However, with the fallout of House of M launching Decimation, which focused on the aftermath of the mutant population's reduction, in an effort to ensure the remainder of the population went forward without fear of elimination, the President activated the Office of National Emergency, which in turn deployed Sentinel Squad 1, which contained the now famous machines, albeit operating by pilots. Stationing themselves at the Xavier Institute, under the continued writing of David Hine, Marvel launched the 5-issue limited series titled 198, which dealt with the remaining mutants who were not featured in the larger X-Men title and how they handled the Sentinel occupation. That said, whether through convenience or editorial direction, the powers of Mr. M were modified in that rather than having to make physical contact in order to modify matter, Mr. M simply had to be in the general vicinity of an object or person. As a result, Absalom began traveling around the Xavier Institute, offering his powers as a means to cure ailments suffered by mutants who wished to physically appear normal. In addition to this, because Charles Xavier had remained missing following the House of M, with Emma Frost and Cyclops taking over as heads of the school, during a meeting on the status of the Institute's occupants, Absalom is officially declared an Omega-level mutant in Marvel Comics. Now, for those of you who are new to the Marvel landscape, within Marvel Comics, there are those who are considered to be possibly Omega-level, verified Omega-level, and beyond Omega-level. For mutants like Storm, who can control the elements, or Magneto, who can manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum, fans largely consider them to be potentially or unverified Omega-level mutants. What this means is that in essence, they have all the qualifications for being an Omega-level mutant regarding their power being strong enough to lay waste to the planet, or else having no upper limit to their capabilities, but they have never been verified as an Omega-level mutant per se. Now transitioning to his powers again, because Mr. M presented an anomaly in that his abilities were well beyond the scope of either the X-Men or humanity, writer David Hine revealed that despite all his abilities, Mr. M, like all mutants in Marvel Comics, fell victim to the powers of Leech. To sidetrack for a second, during his run on the X-Men title and in an effort to beef up the total number of mutants, writer Chris Claremont created Leech as a mutant with the power to shut down the powers of other mutants, serving as somewhat of a trump card, with Absalom Mercator intending to move the remaining mutants away from the Xavier Institute, while a handful followed. The desire of Cyclops was to ensure the survival of all remaining mutants by keeping them confined in one location. Intending to retrieve those who followed Mr. M, Cyclops initiated a battle between the two groups, with Leech depowering Mr. M, after which Magma used her powers to control Molten Rock to destroy Absalom Mercator entirely. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end. It's relatively short, but that's really just because Mr. M only appeared in about 16 issues in Marvel Comics. And so if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys drop a like, make sure you leave a comment, and make sure you guys hit the subscribe button to become part of the Rob Corps. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.